Cup of Joe with Grampa Dez. Hey, James, how you doing, buddy?
Grandpa Dez, I am so excited about this. I only learned a few days ago that you sang your own theme song. It was a thing of beauty, and I'm so excited I get to be a part of this tonight.
Thank you. I will warn you that if you watch this show for any length of time, that theme song it's an earworm. It's going to get stuck in your head, and I apologize ahead of time for that, but I'm sorry, I can't do anything.
It's like the old the old trucking academy commercials that I would watch growing up, where until very recently, those were always stuck in my head. And that's what you want. That's what's going to make this show go viral, Paul Fontaine.
That's my hope. That's my hope. And you know what? Big time guests like you. And I'm not even joking, man. And Brian Alvarez and some of the guys I got coming up. Actually, I just broke the news on the last podcast I recorded, so I can say it here as well. I got Lance Storm booked for Christmas Eve.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I saw you talking about how you didn't think you could get Lance on the Brian Alvarez one. So congratulations. That's
Thank
huge.
You, man. Yeah. Well, it's funny because I just, recently started communicating with him, and but I was kind of nervous to ask him because we've never even met. And I kind of want to talk to you about this, and we'll talk about Lance later, or maybe not even at all. But so you and I have known each other, kind of casually, I would say, for probably 10 years, maybe
maybe
longer.
It's been around a decade.
Yeah. And we would have met in Vegas.
Yep.
At a UFC,
and I think I was wondering a few minutes ago, like, when's the last time I saw you?
I was too.
The last UFC I went to was UFC 200, and I don't think you were at that one.
I definitely was there. So that is where I saw you.
All right, there you go.
And I know where it was, actually. It was the show the night before the fight, the tough finale. I was credentialed, as were you, and we ran into each other at the food table.
Yeah, that's what it was, because I remembered we were at the MGM Grand, and I was like, 200 wasn't at the MGM Grand. That dead on. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I invited you to the sweet party, but you weren't able to come because you were too busy with your, with your work that you were doing for UFC at the time.
I got to tell you, man, like back then, like I really wanted to go to the F4W events, but I would I'd be so tired after like going all day, because when you're covering the UFC, like you get there to pick up your credentials at like 3 p.m. and then you're out of there around midnight, and then you've got to go like write stuff up, and I would just be so tired. It's like I can't walk to another hotel at this point.
No, and so that's what I like about the Vegas shows, because what you're talking about, and especially for me, and not a ton of people are going to see this, so I feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
When I cover a UFC event, I'm going to use air quotes, because I'm basically I'm using my status as a media member to get free tickets to the show. I'll be honest with you. Like, I am writing a report and I am covering it, and I do a podcast now.
You are working, but it kind of feels like imposter syndrome to me when I was covering UFCs. Like, I would go back, I'd post something from my radio station. Every Wednesday I'd do a show. I did pictures and video, even if it wasn't going to be used. And, but I still, Ariel Hawani's walking by, and I'm talking to Karen Bryant, and I'm like, I'm not these people. I always had imposter syndrome, which I've got a pretty good story about that I might share later in this episode.
Well, I mean, and so you're on one level and I'm below that, because I'm not even being modest. I mean, it's true,
because you worked for F4W. You've done stuff for F4W for years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, I'm literally like, so you're showing up at 3 and you're working till midnight. Yeah. I'm showing up halfway through the prelims, and I'm, leaving as soon as the main event's over. I'm coming in for the free food, and, and I'm going to say hi to a few people. I think in that show, I even left to go sit with my friends. I
remember there was a story. You had a story that night about betting slips, and I think you might have won a bet, but you'd already like thrown them away or something like that. Right?
So what happened was I had a ticket. I bought it before the main card started. I bought it at the MGM. Then we went to the Texas de Brazil.
Yeah.
And I showed everyone the ticket, and the card actually started while we were at Texas de Brazil. So the first 3 fights on my parlay, I'm watching them on my phone while we're eating, and I'd already won 3. And then I come to the show and I'd seen you. And then the fourth one happened while I was there. So I had one more fight. And then that fight I won. So right away, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go cash in this ticket right away.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the ticket. I can't find it. And the ticket's gone.
That's what it was.
So what had happened was it fell into my pocket somewhere in the casino. Because I remember having it when I went in there because I ran into someone and I showed them the ticket. And that's what had happened. So it was a $50 bet that paid about $600.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I went to
beating myself up to this day over that.
I hope you know what this means because I don't.
I don't, but Dina Daniel, thanks for tuning in.
Is that VaTech, like Virginia Tech, maybe?
It must be. Like I went to Louisiana Tech, so you're very close as it relates to me.
Okay, fair enough.
Very close.
Yeah. So I went to the window, the security window, and they actually looked up. They could see the security video and everything. And they proved that I had bought the ticket. They found what I had won. And literally while they were doing it, someone else had already cashed it in. So someone had found it and they said, there's nothing we could do. If it was 5 minutes earlier, we could have canceled the ticket, printed you out a new one. That person wouldn't have been able to cash in theirs. You would have cashed in yours. Like they saw me on the video placing the bet and everything. So, whatever. It's a nice story now. I can still tell. Like
the thing is, later. Like you lost $50.
Right.
But in my mind, the way my mind works, I lost $650. That's the way my mind works. I would have been, I'd be miserable.
Well, one of the last times I was in Vegas, I'd say two hours in, I won 2 straight jackpots on tables, not huge ones, but I was up $2,500. And I went to an F4W gathering. We were at the bowling thing down near the Venetian. I paid for everyone's food. I'm like, I'm on cloud 9, right? I spent like $250. But then I went gambling. Then we did some other stuff that you do only in Vegas. And what I'll say is I woke up at 10 a.m. I didn't wake up. I came to at 10 a.m. With $15 in my pocket. But I had a great night, I think.
That's what matters. That's what matters. Look, I love Las Vegas. My best friend lives in Vegas. I've met so many friends through the UFC there that when I talk about like leaving Louisiana, Vegas is absolutely like on the top of my list. And I think Vegas has only really defeated me one time. Like, and I think that's pretty good. Oh, like over like a dozen visits, only really having the road own me truly one time, I think is pretty good.
I don't think I've ever seen you in person and you weren't like completely sober. I could be wrong.
When I drink pretty hard, but I don't drink very often. Like I've got a bottle of whiskey sitting around here that I've been working on for almost a year. Like, so if like it was a big group of us out like doing karaoke, which I only made karaoke one time, I would have been drinking then. And but other than that, like, and on days when I was working UFC, wouldn't drink.
You came to the Brass Lounge with us, right? On Fremont Street?
That's exactly right. That was a fun night.
So if you ever come back, the new spot, because they closed down the Brass Lounge, we go to this place called Go Karaoke. It's just off the strip. We get our own little room.
Okay.
Drinks are cheap. They're like $3 a drink. They have this Korean wine that they make that they bring in these glass jars. And Vinny's wife, Bridget, she orders these things like soda pop.
Can we talk about what a wonderful human being Bridget
God.
is? She is one of the best women I've ever met.
I want to have her on this show.
Oh, you should. I think Bridget also is a great storyteller. Like she always has something fascinating to talk about. Always.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, Vinny, I like Vinny.
You're not bad either.
No, I like Vinny, but he doesn't hold a candle to Bridget. He hit the jackpot there.
He did. He absolutely did.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, she's one of the very first people in that group that I, was friendly to me. I'll be honest, because the first year I went, I had a really hard time making friends, and I almost didn't go back.
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like that group is a very socially awkward group. Like all of us have our own different things. And Bridget is a uniter. Bridget is there and she is going to talk to everybody. She's going to make sure everybody knows they have someone to talk to. And she, I think, is one of the real building blocks of the group, in that she's the bridge that helps people get to know one another. And that's a lovely thing in a group like that.
Yeah. And I think Vinny is more like us, Where if she wasn't around, he probably wouldn't talk to anybody. He'd go to his room and, whatever. Like, he's not a gambler. He's a big drinker, but
people that know me from like like HGTV or whatever, they think I'm really an extrovert, and I'm not at all. Like, I'm an extrovert on here, but in person, I am a real, and unless like I'm around some old friends or I'm just having a great night, I'm a big time introvert, big time.
That's I don't know if you saw it, but I recently posted, and I think this might apply to you too. My theme song should be the Smokey Robinson "Tears of a Clown." If you're familiar with that song, and that it's
Vaguely.
well, it's like people say I'm the life of the party because I tell a joke or two, but deep inside, it's just a substitute. Take a good look at my face. My smile is just out of place.
That's perfect. That's phenomenal.
If you look closely, it's easy to place the tracks of my tears. It's my theme, because we do these things, and I'll tell you, I don't know about you, and you've been doing this for a little while, but maybe take you back 10 years or longer, if you would have thought that you would be doing a show on YouTube or on video and putting yourself out to the world, like, no freaking way am I doing that.
In high school, I passed my speech class with a D because I gave like 1 out of 5 speeches and I almost threw up. Like, I could not talk to people. Like, by my senior year, like, I was coming out a little more and then a little more in college, but man, I used to be the kid who couldn't talk to anybody. Like, when I tell people I couldn't talk to girls till I was a junior in high school, I don't mean hit on a girl. I mean, I couldn't ask a girl what time it was because I was like in awe it's a girl,
Preach.
Yeah. Like, I remember once, like, this girl left her purse in gym class and I grabbed it and I found another girl to go give it to her because I there was no way I was even going to be able to get the words out. Like, that's how awkward I was as a kid.
I had I'll say in 10th grade, there was a girl. So what I would do is I was the same, like what you're talking about. I couldn't talk to a girl. Mm-hmm. I had these long-term crushes on women, girls that, and I just couldn't even talk to them. Or if I did, it was, there was a reason. It was homework. It was this, it was that.
Yeah.
So I would set my sights on, honestly, like what you would call like low-hanging fruit. It's like, oh, I could maybe get her, kind of thing. And not, with any incident, like literally just a date. No. That's all I wanted. So I had this one girl that I kind of decided, okay, you know what? I think she's just attainable enough for me. And so I asked her out, and it was like the scariest thing in the world for me. And she actually said yes. And I was like, oh my God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But what happened was, I all of a sudden got really excited and I started telling my friends, and you know how kids are, and everything's going around, and she was probably as shy as me. And as soon as it was like all these people were talking about it, she's like, you know what? I didn't think this was going to be a big deal. I thought we were just going, I didn't want the whole school talking about it. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. And I was just devastated. And I had these tickets to a movie, and I remember the movie.
What was it?
It was the sequel to Romancing the Stone, Jewel of the Nile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had won the tickets on a radio station, and I was going to invite her. So I ended up having to go with my cousin.
Yeah. Everything was coming together. You had the girl, you won the tickets.
Yeah.
This is perfect. And I'm pretty sure that was a little bit of a romantic movie.
Yeah,
I know there was a big love story in it. Yeah.
And as it turns out, get this. I reconnected with her. Well, so I reconnected with her brother, who I was also friends with in school. About probably 10 years later, we were going to the same church, and him and his wife were there, and they had a kid and stuff, and we got together. And then I'm like, well, I should look up, his sister on Facebook. And so I messaged her, and we became friends on Facebook. As far as I know, she's still single.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know, and I, obviously I got married, I have kids now and everything. And like, but I always wonder, like, maybe, what would have happened? Like,
maybe that was the one major decision.
Yeah.
That totally changed her life.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it worked out well for me because, I met my wife, and I mean, who knows, could have worked out well with her too. But, and then even when I started getting out, like branching out, and I went into like work and stuff, what I found out was, and when you mentioned about, people thinking about you, I was at workplace and I would be like very outgoing, like just overly outgoing. And so I actually was able to get dates But what would happen was, as soon as I would get on these dates with these girls, they would see the real me, and they were almost like turned off because they thought they were getting this guy who was like just all out there and just part of the life of the party, having fun. And instead they got this shy guy who's barely afraid, like barely want to touch their hand, let alone make out or, even go further.
And it's not that it was a problem with you. It's just not what was advertised.
Well, yeah. And they thought they were getting a guy. Different. Like, I actually literally had someone, I thought you were going to make a move on me, or actually she told a friend, and then they got back to me like, oh, and meanwhile I'm like afraid to, but I totally could have. So, you learn, and a couple of years later I got married, and
I grew up Catholic, and so like I had the most bizarre ideas about love and sex and everything. And I swear I was like probably junior high school before I realized girls wanted guys to make a move. Like girls wanted sex too, or just, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I was, the one thing my parents taught me about sex and love, the talk. One thing was, my dad once sat me down and said, son, stay away from wall-eyed women. Big-eyed women are crazy. And I later discovered he did not understand what wall-eyed meant, number one. And number two, that did not work because, like, I'm into big-eyed women, let me tell you.
The talk for me was 3 words.
Okay.
Wrap it up. How's it? And you know what? Wise words.
Yeah, wise words. Absolutely.
Short but sweet.
Yeah.
Short but sweet. So I remember a conversation that we had. Where was this? Well, it wasn't. Yeah, it was in Vegas. It was in Vegas. It was at a house party. Okay. One of the years in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Me, Ed San Antonio, I think Junior Horseman.
Yep.
Justin Payne and one other guy. We all had a house, and it was, I think it was no, it wasn't 200 weekend. Either way,
no,
we all got a house together. It was UFC 196, because my story that I've got to tell you later about like the most ridiculous day I've ever had in Las Vegas was UFC 196. It involves me having to leave that UFC and drive back to that house. So yeah, that's when it was. It was McGregor versus Mendez.
Right. Was that 96 or 9?
It might. I just know it was McGregor Mendez.
I think it was 89. I think it was 189.
Yeah, 189. You're right.
Yeah,
that's the
because
first one.
200 would have been a year later.
Yeah.
Because what I remember about that was I had literally just got my UFC credentials for the first time. Okay. And I was going to be covering the show in Saskatoon. And you were planning on working that show too.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, why don't you fly up to Winnipeg and then we'll drive from Winnipeg to Saskatoon together. And I like,
amazing
for me to even ask somebody that, like, you have no idea like how hard that was.
Yeah.
And then you were just like, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm like, wow, cool. Okay. And then it didn't work out. You ended up, I think, not going to the show.
Yeah.
But I was kind of looking forward to that. But as it turned out, I ended up taking my son on the trip with me. So that was fun too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a good time. He didn't get to go to the show because I was media and I didn't want to pay for a ticket for him. But I
not
met
at UFC prices. No,
but I met Y Ting at that show. Yeah, before he was Y Ting, he wasn't even doing the show with Pollock
yet.
No, he was working with I didn't even know his name. I mean, literally, we just started talking because we were watching Takeover on or SummerSlam on the screen backstage. We were both way more interested in SummerSlam than the UFC event. I imagine Pollock was probably there, but I didn't meet him. But I did meet Robin Black as well.
I've never met Robin Black. That's awesome.
Yeah, you ever have a conversation with Robin? You're lucky you get 2 words in. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like I want to be there for that performance.
Yeah, I met him in Winnipeg again too, and it was the same thing. But he's cool. Like, he remembers you and everything and stuff. And so I appreciate that about people and you as well. Like when we ran into each other, because you never know, like, do people even know who you are? And
it's like I've talked to Dave Meltzer probably 2 dozen times, but I never know if he remembers who I am ever. And to this day, I don't know if he knows who I am. Like, I've talked to him like in the press room at tables. Like, in the seats at the UFC, like at the suite party at the F4W conventions. I have no clue if he knows who I am.
I'll bet you he does. And I'll tell you why. And this shocked the heck out of me. You remember earlier this year, because you listen to Wrestling Observer Radio, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when he had talked about, and I think he even wrote about his cousin passing away, that he was super close to. So years ago in Vegas, he introduced me to her, and he introduced me to his cousin, and so and I couldn't remember her name, but he introduced me to her, and I thought it was really cool that he actually made a point. He brought her. It wasn't he literally brought her over to me. Hey, I want you to meet somebody. And so that was cool. And then
it's like a meaningful thing. Yeah,
it was. But then I'm thinking, oh, he's probably doing this with 8 million people, right? And maybe he was. I don't know. But then when his cousin passed away, I sent him a message. Oh, I heard about your cousin. Sorry to hear about it. In the back of my head, I'm wondering, is this the same cousin that I met? I don't know. Maybe he's got 100 cousins, And then he's like, yeah, he says, I was really close to her. He said, you met her. I introduced you to her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then he said, and then I think we even saw each other one more time, like a year later or something and he mentioned the place. And I'm thinking about, oh yeah, I remember that. So he's got a fantastic memory, or it was meaningful enough to him that we were close enough that he felt like he wanted to introduce his cousin to me. And at that point I realized, oh, okay, maybe we are close.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so and honestly, even when we go to functions and stuff, often, he'll walk in late, and if there's an empty seat next to me, he comes and sits down beside me, and I'm like, well, maybe I was the only empty seat. That's what I tell myself with my fragile ego. And
oh, that's how my mind works too. Yeah. Absolutely.
But maybe it's, and maybe
then I think you're a friendly face that he recognizes, and he's happy to have a friendly face to sit down next to.
And I'm probably the closest person in age to him, because I'm 50, he's 62, and even, 5 years ago, I was 45.
When I first found out that you were an actual grandfather, it blew my mind because I had no idea you were 50. I had no idea you were in that age. Yeah, I had no idea you were in that age range, you seem like a much younger guy.
Well, when we met, I was a lot younger, but even when I brought my oldest son with me to Vegas, I brought him the first time in 2012, and he was only 20, so he wasn't able to gamble yet. But the last time I brought him was just a few years ago, so he's 28. And
did y'all get to gamble together?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
The dealers all thought we were brothers.
Oh wow.
And in fact, one thought I was the younger brother.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I had him on the show.
My son forget that.
No, I had him on the show a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out.
I'm going to go back and watch that one for sure.
He actually talked about something you might be interested in. He talked about, it was a fundraiser that he's doing right now on Twitch. So I don't know how familiar you are with Twitch. I don't get it at all. But he explained it to me.
Every year I make a push to get monetized on Twitch. You've got to have not that it doesn't take that much. You have to have 50 to 100 subscribers. You have to have 6 people watch you concurrently for a certain amount of time. You've got a month to do all these things. And I've gotten all of those things done, but all separately. So I've got the subscribers, and then I get hit by a hurricane and it goes away for a year. And then I come back and I'll start doing just live watch parties or whatever, so that I'll have 4 or 5 people watching with me, or the 6 people you need. And so I know how Twitch works, and I really want to be more active on Twitch. Something always happens that gets me away from Twitch.
He's doing, like you said, this fundraiser, which he's making money. People are donating for this cause, and then he is actually getting money from Twitch, which is separate from the fundraiser. It's not, it's got all the money people donate goes directly to his thing. But I guess because of the monetization. Oh, what's the dog's name?
This is Puppadup.
Puppadup. Hey, Puppadup.
Right.
I don't know if you can't hear me because you got the headphones on. I'm surprised my cat hasn't made a run. That's a beautiful home you have.
Well, I know. Isn't it though? It though? I take great care of this home.
This is real behind me. If you didn't know, I don't know if you knew.
Your book is back there in the middle, right?
Yeah, that's my book. Yeah. The Blues Brothers sign I just added not too long ago. Used to belong to my dad. Sign. Yeah, I love it too. I got to mount it somewhere, but Honestly, the banners there are actually they're basically covering up cubby holes, and the cat hides in them. So
Oh,
every
that's
once
cool.
in a while,
You'll
the
start
cat will just
seeing
jump out of there
movement.
in the middle of the show. It's awesome.
Oh, I want that to happen so
Yeah,
bad.
I don't
Okay.
I don't think he's here.
This is
So
something I should already know about you,
okay.
but I made an attempt in high school to get into hockey. It was largely unsuccessful, but I enjoyed all the hockey I watched. It was Nicholas Lindstrom's rookie year was when I made my attempt, and I see your original six banner, which is awesome. I see Bruins. I see is that the Flyers? Who is your
No,
team?
so the original 6 is Bruins, Red
Yeah.
Wings, Blackhawks, Rangers, Canadians, and Leafs.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your team?
Jets.
Okay.
I mean,
there
Winnipeg
we go.
Jets. Yeah,
There we
because I'm
go.
from Winnipeg.
I wasn't 100% sure.
So the Heritage Classic thing, that's the Jets and the Oilers. That was an outdoor game about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And my brother made these banners that were at the game, and in the other room, the rec room over there, which is my man cave, I've got this big, goes from the top of the wall to the bottom. Go Jets, go. It's this huge banner. And then I've got all my UFC posters signed.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
that would be better. Like, honestly, it would be a better location than this. This is my office.
Yeah.
But, it works for now.
Yeah.
We got another comment here. From
Mike
our
Gilbert,
buddy Mike.
my man. Listen, Mike Gilbert, who I've never met. We haven't even talked on the phone, and I need to change that. Mike Gilbert is the reason I'm the host of The Boom on Fight Game Media. Mike Gilbert, I think, has seen me do a couple of interviews on HGTV's Facebook page, that sort of thing. He knew I was into AEW, and I think he's the guy that gave my name to the head honcho Garrett Gonzalez. Yeah. And so I owe all my success in life to Mike Gilbert. Mike, thank you so much.
And honestly, if it wasn't for Mike, I wouldn't be doing this show. Because
look at Mike making magic happen.
He gave me the inspiration for it. He said, if anybody needs any help doing something like this, go ahead and do it. And then he was my first guest. And as great
I've got to go back and watch that one. I've only watched Brian Alvarez.
As great as this show was, and we're almost at the end, as great as the Alvarez show was, and it was okay. The one with my son, the one with Mike was the best. And I'm not sure if we're going to top it, because we went into a direction that I don't think either one of us was expecting to go. And it was an awesome conversation, and it was an important conversation. And if you listen to last week's Brace for Impact that he did with JD, by God, Oliva, it was similar to the opening of that, but just a little bit more in depth. So,
very cool.
What I will tell you, I mean, I invited you into the Fight Game Facebook group, right? I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
And but when Garrett was asking, he brought up the idea, we need to do an AEW, an all-encompassing AEW show. And I was all in. I want to do that. Except I'm already doing 2 shows. And I would have done a third one, but Garrett's like, you're already doing 2 shows. I don't want to burn you out. And then he's like, but what are some people that we could bring in? And I mentioned Kevin Ely, who's your co-host.
Yep.
And I thought of you. And then I thought, there's no way James will do it. So I didn't even bring you up. I'm like, I'm bringing up other people. And he's like, but we need a certain kind of person. We need a person that's going to bring in people that aren't already in the group to listen and stuff like that. And again, I'm thinking, well, James would be perfect. I wish he would do it. And then Mike actually suggested you. So Mike gets all the credit, but I definitely thought of you. I just never thought you'd do it.
When Garrett first talked to me, he also said he didn't think I'd do it. When I told him was look, I do this. I do live videos.
Yeah.
The travel channel for HGTV. And they're fun. I enjoy doing them. I get paid well. But all I want to talk about in life is legitimately AEW. Not even just wrestling in general. My best friend, we talk probably every day for at least an hour, and all we're talking about is wrestling. All we're talking about is AEW. That's what, it was perfect. I told Garrett, he's like, now we're it won't be a lot of money. I'm like, I don't care if there's any money. I really want to talk about AEW.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't. I mean, I'm taking the money. I'm happy to take it, and
absolutely,
and I use it. But I'm if it was no money, that's fine too. I just enjoy doing the shows. I always feel better when I'm finished doing a show than when I started.
Yeah.
And this especially, because what I figured out about this show in particular, as some people have enjoyed it and I got a lot of positive feedback on it, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm basically just creating an excuse to call my friends and have conversations with them, and face to face, which we don't do enough these days. We text, we message, we sometimes don't even do that.
And I agree 100%. Like there's people I consider really good friends. I realize I've not talked to, like, even like not FaceTime, not even a phone call. We've just text through all of COVID, and I feel horrible about that. Horrible. But
I shared a story on the show with Mike about that. So I won't even spoil it. When you go listen to that show, you'll hear what I'm talking about. Is exactly what you just talked about. There's the one other thing I wanted to ask you, and we're already over the time that I said we'd be, but I have to ask you. And if you don't want to answer, I totally understand it.
Okay.
I'm not even joking, but I wanted to ask you this, and I should have done earlier.
I'm excited now.
Well so there's some people that might watch this, and there's friends, mutual friends of both of ours that are really good friends, people that you like, that I like, that for whatever reason you have blocked off of social media. Right. And I wanted, without saying any names, because the people know who they are and they may not even be watching.
I gave one of them a shout out on the Boom this week, actually.
Okay. So if you want to explain why you did that, to kind of maybe explain to them that it's not about them.
No,
not necessarily.
I'm going to be brutally honest here. I'm a very fat man. I have health problems. I have high blood pressure, and I can get, like, my blood pressure can go through the roof so quickly. And there's a number of people. So even just seeing something really negative sends my blood pressure through the roof. So a few years ago, I realized I don't need to let social media get me worked up, get me angry, get my blood pressure up. And there's some people that I think do amazing work in MMA, and I love talking to them every time I meet them. But on my personal pages, they'll only show up to say something negative, generally to correct me on something, or in my mind, try and make me look like a moron when I'm not a moron. And so I generally, like, I don't want to say anything to them. I don't want to start anything, because what they've done doesn't deserve for anything to be started. So I just block them. I just make it go away. It's as simple as that. It's literally for my personal health. I don't have any hatred for them, any anger at them. And if I see them, I want to talk. I want to talk to them because they're really good at what they do and they're good people in person. But I just don't. Their online presence doesn't work with my online presence, and that's it. And again, one of those people, I gave a shout out on my Fight Game Media show, The Boom, which came out earlier today, because they're so good at what they do, and they have a show on Fight Game Media, and I wanted people to know what amazing people Fight Game Media has hired to cover not just wrestling, but boxing and MMA.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up boxing, because that boxing show that is on there
so
is
good.
Incredible. Yeah, I don't even like boxing, and I like their show.
And the articles on Fight Game Media, like the top 45 fighters.
Robert Silva,
I love it. He's so good. Yeah. He's so good. And I think he's the only one other than me that, when we had our kind of Mount Rushmore conversation on boxing, like, I like Mike Tyson. I like him a lot as a personality, but I got so angry when I saw him listed as one of the top 4. I'm like, no, like, he is only, like, anytime he's been challenged, he's folded. He's never really beat the big names, the Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield. And I think it was me and Silva that kind of got worked up when we saw that.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to explain that, because again, it's not even necessarily that the people were negative to you.
Yeah.
It's just that they're negative in general in some cases.
That's the thing, is whenever
or in some cases, not even negative, but not positive.
Yeah. For instance, when something like that happens, when I see, and I've got a really good friend and somebody I've always considered a really good friend, I'm not going to name them. Yeah. I realized recently, like, in person, we get along so great, but on Facebook, like, I'll look at, like, on my birthday, nothing. The day, like, my dog or dad died, nothing. But then if I say something even remotely political, here they are just burying me. And I'm like, are we really friends if you never have anything positive to say? You never like something, you never support, you're never here when I have an accomplishment or something happy or something funny. I usually try and make people laugh on my social media, and then the only thing they post is negative. Like I just don't need to see that.
I love like you on social media. Like I love you in person, but you're just awesome on social media, and
I really appreciate
I'm lucky
that.
I made the cut. Yeah. So yeah, we went way long here, but this was such a great conversation. I'm definitely going to have you back if you'll come back.
Please do. I was hoping this was going to be way longer. I'm kind of disappointed we're in.
Well, I mean, we could, but I promise people, you know, and at some point I want to put this on podcast. And I think my idea is that I will take the 3 shows, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and put them as one if I'm going to do a podcast. So you would have like one episode. That's a
great idea.
Yeah, thank you. You know, as opposed to having 3 individual shows you have to listen to, you get one, and then, you know, if you don't particularly care about a guest, you can skip that one, you know, whatever.
Exactly.
Hopefully they all like all of them. Yeah. Another one I'd recommend if you're going to go back, you do not know who this guy is, but I think you'd be interested just because of what he does. And it's Ricky Borba. It was a couple Fridays ago, and he's a director. He did a holiday movie called Hope for the Holidays, like a big budget like movie. I don't know how I got him. Well, I do know. I just don't know how I got him. My aunt set me up with him because she's friends with him, and
that's awesome.
I was so intimidated, but it went great. And he's a super guy, and great movie. Check it out if you get a chance. I think you particular would like this movie because you're a positive guy. And it's called Hope for the Holidays. It's on it's on Amazon Prime, but it's also on the Christian or positive family values movie site they have.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
It's like Pure.
I think that's
Pure
it.
Film or something like that. Yeah,
it's something like that.
It's mentioned in the thing
Prime, for sure.
Yeah. It's a good, like big name actors in it. You know, Todd Bridges,
real deal dude. That's
awesome. And somehow, and he wants to do the show again at some point, so it'd be cool.
Well, I think that says a lot about you as a host.
Thank you.
You were easy to talk to. You were fun to talk to.
Oh man, thank you so much.
I've had a great time doing this. I really have.
Well, and I want to say I'm so glad you joined Fight Game Media. I love your show.
Thank
you. I literally, like I said this, I made a comment. I'm not just blowing smoke. Like 10 seconds into that show, I could tell, like, oh my God, the energy that James is bringing, and Kevin is the perfect co-host with you.
I was thinking today, Kevin is so good. The first thing I thought when we started doing the podcast was Kevin has such a great voice. And there's a lot of things I think I do bring to the table, but one of them is not my memory. Like I have a terrible case of sleep apnea that's caused legit like brain damage that's reversible and all, but like names slip my mind, and Kevin has such a great memory, and like anything I bring up, he knows, and he is great everywhere that I'm not great. And I love Kevin Ely, and also Kevin Ely, I'd done the How to Catch a Wrestling Bug podcast, and the one before me was Kevin. David. Yeah, with David Level, who I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed doing that. It was such a fun time. But the one before mine was Kevin's, so I went back to listen to it to like reacquaint myself. I'd already listened to a bunch, and I thought, man, I think me and Kevin would get along. And I got to tell you, after each podcast, he has trouble getting off of the video thing with me because I always want to talk more. I love him.
Tell me about it. I've already gone 10 minutes longer than I wanted to. But I mean, I'm having a hard time. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking Diet Coke. Listen, my body. Now we're talking. This body right here. This body right here is powered by aspartame, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody wants to tell me this is going to give me cancer. If it does, I'll be the first. I will be the canary in that coal mine. So the day that I announce I have cancer, that's how you'll know. Until then, we're all safe.
Do you drink coffee?
I don't drink coffee. Now, I'll tell you what. My parents have always drank coffee, everybody in my life but me. Recently, I've had this I've had it going through my head like it's almost like my taste are changing. I'm like, man, I'm really thinking about getting a coffee maker because I think I'm this has happened before in my life where my taste has changed, and I'm like, man, that mustard taste that I hate, I really want that right now. And it caught, and I'm thinking the same with coffees about
on a hot dog. Exactly. So this is a 710 milliliter bottle. So I think that is 16 ounces.
I think it's 16.
Yeah. So I have one of these a day, usually at night, and then the rest of the day I'm drinking coffee. So I have a big mug, which is 32 ounces in the morning. Then I have 2 extra large Tim Hortons coffees, as you see in my little logo there, through the day. And then sometimes at night I'll have another one. Like, I drink a lot of coffee, dude. And yeah, that's probably the energy that I still have at just after midnight as we're recording.
That's right.
This, so
I'm glad. Listen, I'm really glad that you're a night owl like me, because when you start offering times, I was like 11:30. That's stinking perfect.
Yeah, and
I love it.
And I apologize for being 5 minutes late, but the podcast I was recording earlier, we went a little long because there's such a great UFC on Saturday that we had to talk about. So
it was amazing. I wish we would have brought this up 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, but yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up. 40 minutes in. This is officially the longest show we've had, but I will have you on again. And thank you so much for joining me, James. This was really fun. And so I will close the show as I always do. And for James, I am Grampa Dez, and this has been Cup of Joe with Grampa Dez.